Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by EO Nashville, where we interview members of EO Nashville. We talk about all the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur, starting, running, and managing a business, figuring out how to take advantage of the opportunities and solve the problems that we all run into. And it's a very special episode today. Thank goodness you guys don't get to see all the technical difficulties we just had.
Yes.
And hopefully there's not a lot of crackling noises in the background. Anyway,
it's all going to work out, Eric.
It's all going to work out. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Thanks once again.
Always a pleasure. Hopefully everybody can hear us when this gets recorded. With us today, Mr. Kevin Thompson of Thompson Burton. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Real excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure you have enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed the production.
Yeah, it's quite the adventure. Anytime you got microphones and technology involved.
There's a lot going on here.
There is a lot. It's probably, well, I don't want to make any assumptions. Is it as complicated as managing 50 attorneys?
I wouldn't say so. That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. You've got one guy here pushing all the buttons. It takes a larger team to make our boat float.
Yeah. So you mentioned before all the circus kicked in that this is not your first venture as a business owner and entrepreneur. Walk us through what your experience has been and how you came to where you are today.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really excited to be here, so thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
And certainly Thompson Burton's been my most successful venture and my pride and joy, and it just runs out of my veins. I would say a tagline for my life would be better than expected. And so coming out of high school, I wasn't heavily recruited and got an opportunity to compete at Tennessee. In the decathlon, there was a coach that just saw some pieces and took a chance, and it worked out. My last year of eligibility was my first year of law school. So that was really hard. My grades were okay, but not great. So I wasn't heavily recruited out of law school. So I had to work for free in Greenville, Tennessee. So from Knoxville to Greenville, an hour and 15-minute commute. Nobody wanted to do it. I'll do it. And did a great job, got a great recommendation, and that led to other opportunities. And that seems to be a theme in my life, where part of the challenge is just showing up, doing your best, and creating opportunities. As far as prior opportunities before Thompson Burton, no entrepreneurial ventures. That all came after 2012. So we formed the firm in 2012, and since then I've tinkered with other things. But I was a lawyer at a firm in Knoxville for a couple years, and had an idea pretty early that even if I ended up on top of the top, it wasn't where I wanted to be. I had those instincts early where you can climb a ladder, but if it's leaning against the wrong wall, it's not great. Great firm, just didn't really scratch the itch that I had, and ultimately ventured on my own in 2010 and was a solo practitioner and digging out my own business. And then I realized that law firms were really just old, outdated models, and they were ripe for disruption. And that's when I called my partner, Walt Burton, who's a phenomenal lawyer and a great partner. And he and I synced up in 2012. And so starting with two lawyers with no office, no insurance, very little infrastructure, if any. And I guess 12 years later, we've got 50 lawyers and a pretty good model. I think it's a great model. And a team of about 70 people total. So 50 lawyers and 20 staff.
So what are the things that you saw that you wanted to change that have made the difference for you and made it your ideal situation?
Well, back in 2009, when this idea hit, I had a suspicion that you didn't have to have a massive infrastructure to do the business of law, that really law is just lawyers sharing information. And this was an era when social media was just starting to take off for professionals. So the college kids were already on it. Average consumers were already using it, but professionals weren't really using it to spread a message. And I saw an opportunity for me as a solo practicing lawyer. This is a way for me to get my name out there and show up ahead of other people in Google search. People that have been practicing for 30 years were invisible online. And so I saw this opportunity, and it worked for me for, let's say, about a year and a half. And that's when I realized, you know what, you don't need a sophisticated office. You don't need expensive space, the furniture, a library. A lot of law firms had libraries back in the day. And there was only one person I could have done it with. And I called Walt Burton, who was he might have been a partner at the time at a really big firm in Atlanta. And I called him on the right day, because on that day he was kind of considering his future options, if he wanted to be a partner at this firm long term, if he wanted to return to Middle Tennessee where he was from. So he and I connected and just had a suspicion we could figure it out. I think that's really a key to a pattern in my life, is that I'm willing to look like an idiot for a longer period than most people. And I still have memories of some colleagues of mine and peers of mine saying, "What the hell are you doing?" Because I was doing whatever I could to get attention. I was creating videos back in a time when people weren't doing that. And I was doing a form of podcasting, just interviews with people, but over the phone being recorded, and I'd share the recording. I was writing a lot of content online. Website was okay, not great. And, one thing my athletic career taught me is that if that good habits compound over time, and you can't really judge success on a week-to-week time frame, that success is really should be viewed in a much longer time horizon. And if you give us enough time, we had a suspicion we'd figure it out. And sure enough, slowly and surely, and we're still figuring it out. We meet twice a month to talk about ways to tighten the screws constantly. And it's a different firm today than it was 12 years ago.
When you started on your own, did you just miss being part of a team? And that's why it's like the desire to have someone else join the journey with you was like strong for you?
I did. I miss camaraderie. At the same time, I was anxious having my destiny on my shoulders exclusively. And so as a lawyer, if I were to get ill, or if the government were to regulate my sector away, hypothetically, or I just needed a hedge, and I had 2 children at the time, and it was intimidating just to think I'm going to be on my own for the next 40 years. And so I had this theory, this hypothesis that we could build a firm and handle a lot of the administrative headaches that other lawyers are experiencing, and provide a service essentially for lawyers, and make it a win-win arrangement where we could attract other lawyers, other partners, and if they have a good experience and if they do well, the firm does well. I call it's kind of a googly model where you don't make a lot of money on any individual person. It's just, it works with scale. And so we're constantly trying to grow and get better.
So in terms of your role now, how much of your time is in that growth mode where you're trying to recruit other attorneys to come join your firm versus you working with clients? What does that look like?
It's a fantastic question. So the way I describe it is there's 2 incomes for me. There's me being a lawyer, an active lawyer. And for really the longest time, that was my primary income. I was still very active, digging out business, going to events, speaking engagements, writing content, doing interviews. And that instinct was there. But over time, the firm, it grew to a size where it needed a little more attention. And also the firm profit was meaningful enough where, okay, it makes sense to kind of let my personal practice slide a little bit. I've got a very young partner. He was my associate for a few years. And I've kind of helped develop him and given him a good start, given him a lot of my business. And I get to focus on what I really enjoy, which is the firm itself. Now, that's my story. My other co-founder, Walt Burton, is still very active as a lawyer. He does commercial real estate, and that's hot. And so they make money in up markets and down markets. And so he does a lot of both. But for me, I've got, one kid about to leave the nest and go to college, and I've got 3 daughters. And so my son's my oldest, and I have 3 daughters. I'm spending time kind of with the family and focusing on the firm itself.
What kind of law do you mainly practice?
So I'm in a niche practice area where I work with the Avons and Herbalifes of the world. So the network marketing companies, it's a very niche practice. So I call it lotions, potions, and pills. So the vitamins and supplements and weight loss products, Advocare, for example, these have all been clients over the years.
Oh, wow. You've had a lot of business.
Business has been good. You know, there's not many lawyers that do it. And so when I'm talking to young lawyers, a lot of young lawyers, they want the pizzazz and the brand and the excitement of having a known space. I'm the top divorce lawyer. I'm the top corporate securities lawyer. It sounds great and it presents well at a cocktail party, but you're competing with hundreds of people in your zip code.
Right.
And so I'm in a niche where there's less than 10 lawyers that really do it on an outside basis. Now, I say outside basis. Your larger companies like Amway, they've got internal resources. But there's a lot of companies that they don't have those resources, and so we charge a flat fee.
How long did it take you to figure out what your niche was?
I love the question. I was in-house at a company in Michigan from 2006 to 2008. And that company was sued by Amway, ironically. And we sued Amway back, accusing them of being an illegal enterprise. And you can imagine at the time, it was $8 billion in revenue. Revenue, not market cap. And it's a privately held business. They punched back. So I was in-house kind of managing this whole warfare. And I was young. I was in my 20s. At the same time, it's such a unique area. It didn't really matter. You kind of had to be young to learn the nuance of the space. And I really dug in. I wrote a law journal article on the subject. And around 2008, same story as the firm that I described earlier, where good ladder, but I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And at that time I was ready. So cue the Rocky music. It was kind of in the back of my ear. Like, I got to do this now. My son was born. He was a newborn. And it's kind of it's a family legacy that we tell our kids and have been told to me. We're all very unemployable people. So my great grandfather came over from Italy on a boat, started a grocery store in Memphis, Signiago Fancy Meats and Groceries. And then my grandfather was a son of immigrants, went to Notre Dame, played football, World War II, tremendous man, owned his own beer business. So he had the rights to Miller and I think maybe Coors and Schlitz in Memphis. So he was an entrepreneur. And my mother, out of necessity, I was raised by a single mother, she started her own business in 1980 doing branding and promotional items. So like little coasters like this with your brand.
Right.
I'd do a plug for her if she was still working. She's retired now. And that small business put food on the table for us. And I saw her run her own business and the frustrations of what that entails, but also the benefits, the freedom and flexibility and autonomy of it. And so 2008, it was my turn. And I didn't know I was going to be in this niche. The saying is, necessity is the ultimate motivator. So we had my son and my wife was pregnant with our daughter. And I knew I wanted to start my own firm. Although I did explore joining a firm in Middle Tennessee. I talked to a recruiting agency. And back to the theme of my life, right? Better than expected. Based on my skill set, which I thought was pretty expansive. Like how many lawyers have gone toe to toe with Amway and had this experience with, several $1 million litigation in this niche practice area. And this recruiter told me, yeah, you're worth about $60,000. Man, that was a punch in my stomach. I invested in my career and I had a suspicion that what I knew was valuable, more valuable than that. And so I'm like, all right, I can't do that. I'm not going to go work for somebody else. I have a theory and I have to see it through. And so I started my own shop late 2008, early 2009 with some Google ads, just seeing what was out there. I put bait on the hook and I threw it in the water and I prayed for a bite. And I got one client and it was a $5,000 matter. Technically 10, but he paid me 5. I got screwed. And I just invested it all in the business. And I made sure to keep the cost down bare bones. So we were in an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment in Franklin, minimal cost, 1 car. Just I didn't know what to expect. And then one client turned to 2 to 4 to 8 to a pretty good career.
What was the biggest decision you've had to make in business since you founded the firm?
So we start the firm in 2012, in April of 2012. And at the time, it was pretty simple. 2 people, and Walt had his expertise and his clients. And he was cocky enough to think that he could keep most of his business from his other firm. And even to this day, we recruit lawyers that are really well seasoned, well respected, and a lot of lawyers overestimate their ability to keep business when they leave. To his credit, he kept a lot of it. So that pot was separate from an income standpoint. That's his income, and I had my business going, and we shared the cost. When it came time to grow, we knew we wanted to do more than the 2 of us. When it came time to build a model, we really had to think through what works at 3, what could work at 50. We wanted to have a model that wasn't subjective, where we determine what somebody gets paid. So we have an objective compensation model for partners. That was a really big decision. And to this day, our model still mimics that early start.
So how did you navigate that decision to how to scale a firm? Did you go follow other people that were doing it? Did you ask around? Like what did that look like?
We've never had mentors. So in our business, which is different from any other sector, we're not a technology company. We're not a traditional consulting company. Law firms, typically the ones in town and really all over the country, they were established in a different era, pre-internet era, where it was really hard for people to leave, the captive audience. And in that kind of model, the partners can really do whatever they wanted to do. And you have committees, and you have compensation committees, and leadership positions where people might not deserve to have authority. And it's a complicated soup. So we were competing against that. And we knew we didn't want to do that. We wanted to build the kind of place that we would be willing to work at ourselves. And just kind of go back, me being at the first firm, which was a good firm, very traditional firm. But even at a young age, I was developing business and my income wasn't going up. I had a problem with that. I left. It's that way at a lot of places. And so we wanted to incentivize producers. And so I can't say that we really ran it by anybody. We just had a suspicion. And as long as his business was good and my business was good, we could afford to make mistakes. That's the key. Cash flow is king. And if the revenue's good, you can plow through problems. Luckily, we didn't make any big mistakes early. A big mistake would have been, and this is actually still a habit we have to this day, we scale at a comfortable pace. So what we typically do is we'll invest in space, but not too much. And then we fill it up. And then we accumulate more space, and then we fill it up. And then the staff is overrun, and then we shore up the staff. We've always scaled at what I feel is a very intelligent and comfortable pace where if a big chunk of people leave, it won't blow us out. Early, if we scaled too fast, it would have blown us out. And so we've been very careful with our growth.
So the you now versus the you before EO, how have you shifted? Has your thinking shifted? The way you lead shifted since you joined EO?
Yeah, I would say empathy has definitely improved. And
wait a minute, an attorney with empathy?
Yeah, it's
like, does that exist?
We had to tell a lawyer joke. Right? Good job.
Well, there's only 2 lawyer jokes, and the rest are true stories. it's been a really rewarding journey for me. And as far as how it's translated into my business, it's finding purpose in the business and trying to find and provide meaning for the team. Like they're not just tools to be used for the enterprise. They're everybody has a unique reason to be there. Everybody is free to leave, so it's a volunteer army. So just I think empathy is very important to valuing people and appreciating people and being grateful for them, because it's a volunteer army. People can leave whenever they want. And being in a forum with other business owners and seeing their struggles at a very human level, very open, raw, emotional, to see them struggle with similar ideas, it's been very valuable for me.
You said the word autonomy earlier, which is one of my favorite concepts. It sounds like you've given people autonomy in an industry that doesn't really embrace that concept.
But that's exactly right. And that was, there's a book where I think it was Simon Sinek, and he said, it's important to give people autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Mm-hmm. Autonomy is very important in our business, and it's very attractive for the right kinds of people. So some people, if they don't have steady business, it makes sense for them to stay where they're at. But if some people, if they've been doing it long enough and they've got a steady stream of business and they just want to be left alone, we do not micromanage. Charlie Munger says, show me the incentive, I show you the outcome. One thing that we do very well and that I think about daily is the incentives. So if there's something out of whack with the business, or if people are behaving in a way that's counterintuitive, we toggle the incentives. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that. And by toggling the incentives, we see the output and we learn. Sometimes we might pay too much on certain things and we don't see really a net benefit to the business. And so we learn. But autonomy is, we deliver on that. Mastery is a function of autonomy. You leave people alone and let them kind of
they're going to do the things that make
express
money,
themselves
right?
how they want to be, how they want to express themselves. Like, I'm not going to micromanage somebody and say, hey, as a bankruptcy lawyer, you need to do this. Again, it goes back to the incentives. We just focus on the incentives and you get the behavior. Purpose is tough in our business as far as social change and community benefit. We try to be active in the community. At the same time, we're a business trying to maximize profit as much as we can.
It's got to be a tightrope to make sure you hire the right person that stays, right? And you're going to invest in them and help them grow. And then having the potential that someone's going to leave and then take away opportunities.
So that goes to really, I guess, confidence in the model itself, confidence in our business plan, confidence in our culture. So culture trumps strategy, and we've got a really good culture, and we're very intentional about that. I like bringing on people that have choices. I don't want to bring on somebody who doesn't have a choice. And we do have people that aren't partners. They're what we call associates. They're employee lawyers. They work for a salary. And I tell most of them, I want you to become so valuable, we can't afford to keep you. We like competing for talent because we'll pay and we'll compete. And if somebody's doing a great job and their value in the market's climbing and they're talking to different firms, we like that because they have skills that are valuable, and we'll compete to keep them. So we don't mind that level of competition. We want to have people that have choices.
So if I was in a meeting with you and we've been working together for a while, over time, I'd figure out what your unique ability is, what that one thing that you're more skilled at than me or whatever. And when I'm in a group of leaders, I would lean on you. What would be the unique ability that you kind of possess in your firm?
So we're not talking about push-ups here, are we?
No, we're not talking push-ups.
A little push-up competition between the two of us. I would say that the ability to think through the economics is a strength of mine. So whenever there's an issue in our model, typically I'm the one that drills down into the numbers to change the numbers that changes actual behavior. I don't like telling people to do something because I tell them to do it. I don't like that kind of authority. I want it to be a win-win arrangement where it's in somebody else's interest to stay with our business. It's in their interest to stay. And if somebody leaves, and we have had some people leave, we don't get upset and point fingers and get upset. We have a hard conversation with the relevant parties. What can we do better? Because this person is leaving because they think they are better served somewhere else. So where did we fall short? What can we do better? We have those honest conversations. But as far as a unique ability that I have, it's diving into the incentives. Also, I tend to be more creative. And that goes back to, I guess, not having too big of an ego. We have an ego. But I spent years not being great at this business. And I understand that it takes time to turn something into an idea, into a success. And so the willingness to hang in there long enough to figure something out. I've got good endurance, to answer your question. I've got the endurance and patience to see how things develop.
So what do you see next? What are you striving for?
We want to keep growing. So right now, from 2 lawyers to 10, it took about 5 years. From 10 to 20, it took about 4 years. From 20 to 50, it took about 3 years. 20 to 50, 3 years. And we think that we provide a better offering for partners as we grow. Because what happens is, as we add competent people to the bus, there's more sharing, there's more collaboration, there's more sparks, there's more origination. I don't do, for example, domestic divorces, but we've got a team. So if somebody comes to me, I have a referral. I don't do wills and estates, but I've got somebody on the team that does. Those pieces were not always there. And so we want to build a business that we can be proud of and that our partners can be proud of. And so I can see 100 lawyers in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Which still, Bass, Berry & Sims is a phenomenal firm. And it's local, homegrown, and I think they're at 300.
Yeah.
So we've got our work cut out for us, but we've got a good plan, good leadership team, and we've got time. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So if you get a question?
Oh, I was going to say that 20 to 50 happened around the time you joined EO, right? I mean, you were what, 3 or 4 years in now?
I'm 4 years in now. And, I can't explain the unlock. There's certain decisions that were made where when you make them, you don't realize the significance. For example, working with a certain technology platform, we built our practice management software on Salesforce. That one little change made it really easy to scale because adding lawyers that bill and all the commissions are calculated automatically, whereas before it was manual. So each lawyer was a really big lift in the old days. Now you get them in the system and the accounting is in pretty good shape. That was an unlock. Excuse me. Having Walt and I managed the firm for about 9 years, where we would just divvy it out and go with whatever we were comfortable with. For example, he was really good with 401k administration and maybe HR issues, and I was pretty good with the tech and the website. It got to a point where we needed some adult supervision, where it wasn't in our economic interest to do that sort of thing, to have conversations with lawyers about their email account. So we hired a CEO and trained him slowly over time, where it just duplicated our energy into the business. And that was a pretty big unlock for us. So we can add a group of 4 lawyers, and it's not a big burden for us as owners of the firm.
Yeah.
So it's a burden for other people. And that's why you have to have a good team.
Yeah. So you've unlocked that lever for scale without the typical expense involved in doing that.
Yeah. So our model is, speaking of expenses, it's a blessing and a curse. So we pay formulaic, and that's a decision we made very early. The benefit is that the percentage that goes to the firm, it's a law of gravity. We can't change it. We have to make it work. And it's a tight margin. And so we're very cognizant of that number in particular. And so as we scale the staff, it can't break the income statement. And so that keeps us in check. We'd love to have more team members, but those numbers are real and we have to work with them.
So if you were going to join EO tomorrow, brand new, you're giving yourself some advice, what would you give an advice to help a new entrepreneur get ingrained into EO?
I would say invest in Forum and give it time. So the genius of Forum in hindsight, now that I've been in Forum for 2.5, maybe 3 years, it's a very tight format. The structure is tight. And when you have a whole bunch of alphas in a room, sticking to a tight itinerary is hard, with very clear timeframes and very clear segments. And it almost seems too mechanical early. But once you really get into it, the format is really fantastic. And so it takes time, though, to come to that realization. And so my recommendation would be invest in Forum and give it time, be patient, and try to honor the process as best you can. And the value reveals itself over time. It's not an immediate light switch. It's marinating around other ideas and with other people over an extended period of time that brings a lot of value.
Was there any big decisions that you had help with inside of Forum?
For sure. Yeah. It's hard to be vulnerable and divulge sensitive information to a group. You have to develop rapport and trust. But once that trust is shared, and maybe other people go first, they share sensitive topics, some business related, some personal, then it became easier for me to do the same. Specifically, obviously we can't, I'm not comfortable talking about it on a podcast, but absolutely there was an item in my life that bringing to Forum and just having other people aware of it and actually expressing it and saying it. And another genius of Forum is you don't have to, sometimes we're not looking for an answer. It's just sharing the idea and just hearing experience shares, hearing how other people see it. That's good enough. And I've certainly had occasion to benefit from that.
I like how you said that, because I've done a deep dive before, and as soon as the words started to come out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, I kind of...
The light bulb goes off.
The problem is different than what I thought it was when I was just talking to myself. Now I've got these peers around me. It's like, oh, well, this is going to be different than what I expected. And it usually comes out.
I think a lot of people also probably think, entrepreneur organization. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. Sometimes we do.
Right. Yeah.
But the real problem is like how we are navigating just living life and the things that come up with marriages and kids and parents and like just things that we're just navigating like in the real world that actually impact the business like naturally, right? If you're not having a great time with your wife, and your marriage is on the rocks, you're going to have a rocky business. There's just no way around it.
It's almost never the thing that we actually do that makes money. It's all the other bullshit that we have to deal with.
That's true. Yeah.
Like compensation and, all those
accounting,
things.
taxes.
Right. The stuff we didn't go to school for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask this. When you guys create stationery, Do you do A, B, and C? How intimidated are you when you see the stationery? Did you ever get a letter from an attorney from the mailbox? That feeling?
Yeah.
I'm sure you did do some kind of testing there, right?
We haven't done that. Our stationery is plain paper and it's not pre-printed. Usually if law firms are using like fancy cover pages, you're overpaying.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks so much, man. Listen, if you are an entrepreneur right here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're looking for community, you're looking to not be alone while you're navigating entrepreneurship in your life, I would like to invite you to eonashville.com, where you can learn more about our organization of over 350 of us who are doing just that. We're actually the largest chapter in the United States.
Third largest in the world.
Say hello, eonashville.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.